Welcome to the Hudson Show. Coming up, Chick-fil-A is testing a new menu item. Also, everything you need to know about my Tennessee trip. All that and more on the way next. It is the Hudson Show from RadioU. Thanks for downloading. I just got back from a trip to Tennessee. My vacation lasted about 4 days, and you'll hear more about it. Some other thoughts on it coming up a little later in the podcast, but I thought I'd start for the dedicated listeners with a little recap of the trip. So let's start with day one, the road trip in. We stopped at what was until recently the world's largest Buc-ee's. It since has been overtaken recently by one in Texas. Honestly, world's largest Buc-ee's, first Buc-ee's experience. Kind of overwhelming. It was so much. I'll tell you, I was surprised by the ratio of food to gift shop. Obviously, Buc-ee's known for their jerky, their barbecue, and we got some of all of that. It was all very good. No complaints about that. It was a little odd at the barbecue station. There was workers there shouting stuff. I couldn't tell what they were saying, doing some kind of like roll call chant. I don't know what that's about. Is that a Buc-ee's thing? Let me know because I have no idea. I don't even know what they were saying. But I would definitely eat there again. But what I was surprised by was that was like maybe 2/3 of the store. And the other third of Buc-ee's is like a gift shop with books and signs and clothes. And I didn't really look all through that stuff all that much, but it kind of reminded me of like if Wawa and Ollie's had a very large baby is what Buc-ee's was. And then, of course, they sold gas as well. I don't know. I enjoyed it. The food was good enough to go back. It was quite an experience. But that was all road trip in, that was about it. Now, hotel. We stayed this time at the Quality Inn. I know, big spender. It wasn't amazing, but nothing to complain about either. The pool was nice. We spent a bunch of time there. It had a hot tub. It was right next to a Denny's, which wasn't as weird for me, but I do feel like it'd be weird for people eating at Denny's, although they're eating at Denny's. They've probably seen some things. It wasn't, again, not amazing. It was good enough for somebody that was just married. Saw that. Someone honeymooning at the Quality Inn in Pigeon Forge. So congratulations to them. There was biscuits and gravy for breakfast every morning. So I appreciated that. I didn't quite get tired of it by the end. I'll also say, too, location. If you're familiar with the Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg area, this was on the very south end of Pigeon Forge. It wasn't intentional that we picked it out to be there, but it was fortunate because we also were looking at hotels in like northern Pigeon Forge or all the way up to Sevierville, which seemed like, oh, that won't be a big deal. After going this time, that definitely would have been a big deal. It would have wasted much more time driving around the area that didn't need to be wasted because most of the stuff that was actually interesting to do was more towards Gatlinburg and the southern side. In fact, the last time we went, we stayed in Gatlinburg the first time, and I'm going to say I did prefer that, although this was completely fine. So that's day one. Day two, Ober Mountain in Gatlinburg. It's one of the ski lifts that takes you up to the top of the mountains, and then there's stuff to do up at the top of the mountain. We've now, between this trip and our previous trip, have done all three of the ones I think that are in Gatlinburg. There's Anakista, there's Sky Park, Ober Mountain. Ober Mountain definitely has the most to do. There is plenty of dining options, of course. In the wintertime, you can do like snow stuff. In the summertime, they have some rides. They have their own mountain coaster up there. They have a ice rink, which obviously I excelled at. Did some skating. Canadian. Makes sense. They also had ice bumper cars. That was interesting. They have some rescued wildlife. So if you go for your trip, you don't see any bears anywhere else, you are able to see them at Ober Mountain. And above and beyond, now this goes for the entire trip, but particularly for Ober Mountain, all the staff just amazingly nice, amazingly helpful, took very good care of us. I think Ober Mountain stands out, but I would say that's true about just about anywhere that we visited while we were on this trip. Also, while we were in Gatlinburg on day two of the trip, we visited Ripley's Aquarium again. I recommend having a ticket to Ripley's Aquarium if you're going to Gatlinburg because it is big enough and unique enough that it's worth your time, but it's not so big that it takes up a ton of time if you just want to go through and see everything. It's a good thing to have because the weather can be very volatile there. a good way to either get out of the heat or get out of the rain if it's storming, which it was for much of day 2 while we were there. Fortunately, too, for Ober Mountain, because the storms, the weather because a lot of that stuff is outside too. It can even stop the ski lift from going up. It did not, at least while we were going. So that was fortunate. We also did some shopping again because the rain wasn't great. We had to kind of pop out of the rain, but we did pop into a place that I love, the Mountain Mall, which is right on the strip. It's just such a vibe. I'll post up video of it on the @HudsonRadioU TikTok so you can see if you've never seen it before. It's fun to look around because it's got like a country, like mountain shack aesthetic to it. And then you can buy anything from records to like sports signs to a gun to pizza to a keytar. Not sure who was going to Gatlinburg and coming home with a keytar, but somebody has done that because they do sell them there. And then also we got some late night food at Cookout, which maybe it is very possible the Cookout is my favorite fast food restaurant, and I wish it was more widespread. I think the Cookout that we went to, brand new built, it looked like it. It's like the best version of food that you could make at home. It really is. Day 3, we did this, and we did not do this previously. This was a big blind spot on our previous trip to Tennessee, is that we didn't actually do any hiking. We didn't do any nature stuff in the Smoky Mountain National Park. This time we did. I picked a trail that I thought wasn't going to be too strenuous, too taxing, but I am notorious for, between Mrs. Hudson and I, whenever we go on a walk, whenever we go hiking, stuff like that, I'm notorious for going like, oh yeah, like this will be no big deal. I mapped it out. We can handle this. And then inevitably either something goes wrong or I get us out over our skis, and it is way more of a task than it seemed to me when I was researching it. So in this case, like I had done some research, read up on Klingman's Dome or whatever. A lot of people said that you get up there, it's a tough hike, and then sometimes you can't even see anything because of the clouds or whatever. So we skipped that. That's the big one. We instead went on the Twin Something Trail. It was not too far outside of Gatlinburg. Supposed to be a good spot to see bears, maybe some snakes. There's some like different little historical buildings along it, and it's not supposed to be too, strenuous of a hike. Needless to say, any hike is strenuous when you're doing like 8 miles almost. And when it starts, talked about the weather, storming on your walk back, a lot of the path turned into literally a creek that was just running along where we were supposed to be walking. And so that was tough, but we were kind of prepared for that. We planned for the hike and then to get back to the car and then go back and regroup. And the only thing is we had to regroup being completely drenched. Later on that night, though, by the way, we didn't see a bear. Later on, weather cleared up. We went and hung out at the Island, which is another like just big touristy place in Pigeon Forge. It's got a massive Ferris wheel, which provides some cool views of the area. Tons of dining, tons of shopping that we hung around there. And we actually wound up eating at a place just outside of the island, just around the corner, called Cookie Dough Monster. Reading the reviews online, that was some place that was very popular. I felt like I was sold a little bit of a false bill of goods because it wasn't full service. You go up to the counter and order. They do have edible cookie dough bites. That's one of their things. That's why it's called Cookie Dough Monster. Those were very good. Lots of flavors, lots of variety, and they were all tasty. They also had shakes, which we did not get, and then burgers, which are massive. Leftovers were brought back, but it was good. It was solid. It was fun, but I wish it was a little nicer. And I did, like, if it was a full service sit down restaurant, I feel like we could have I just would have improved the experience a little bit. Day 4, the last full day there, Dollywood. Spent the entire day there. The weather was perfect, just warm enough that you could go on like the log flume or the river rapids and have a good time, but not so hot that you were, dying out there. Pro tip for Dollywood. If you go, do not park at Dollywood. Park at the Pigeon Forge, their bus station, their trolley center or whatever. An all-day pass for one person is $3, and that takes you directly, you can hop on the bus directly from that Center to Dollywood. It takes like 10 minutes. Or you can go pay $22 for parking at Dollywood. Unless you have a group of that'd be 8 people all riding in the same vehicle. It makes more sense to go and take the bus to Pigeon Forge from Pigeon Forge, where you can park for free, and it only costs $3 for the all day pass at Dollywood. I'm still sticking with the Lightning Rod as my favorite ride. We ate well there. They had like a summer festival going on, some real good barbecue. And we just, from almost open to close, spent time at Dollywood. Plenty to do there. Rode many rides multiple times. It wasn't too crowded. So all the good stuff, like you had to wait for a little bit, but not so long that it wasn't worth it to go on them multiple times. So all in all, Dollywood, really enjoyed it. One of the better theme park experiences. It's not the biggest rides. Like there are other theme parks, of course, that are going to have bigger thrills when it comes to roller coasters, but I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to that anyways, at least compared to some. So that was just fine with me. They had the new Dollywood walkthrough experience where you could, basically be taken through Dolly's entire life, a little museum. That was very interesting. Surprisingly interested in the other building that they had made revolving around Dolly Parton herself. It was all about her fashion. I didn't realize she was such a fashion icon going through. I mean, it's not things that I would wear, but man, Dolly, she's got some good fashion sense. I will say that. And then the final day yesterday, returning from the trip, did not stop at Buc-ee's again. Already had my fill. It was a little overwhelming, as I said, but a nice, easy drive back home. And there you have it. If you want to see more highlights, like I mentioned, they're up at Hudson RadioU on TikTok. I'll be posting those over the next several days, and we'll get some out on the RadioU socials as well. I got a few more thoughts, just overarching thoughts you'll hear later on in the podcast. And, we got Fired or Hired coming up, a whole lot of other good stuff. Enjoy. Thanks for, indulging me here. It's the Hudson Show. Hudson back from Tennessee, back from vacation. It was a wonderful time. Thanks for asking. Just long enough of a trip for me to apparently forget how to type, being away from work, being away from a keyboard. Although some might say I never really knew how to type in the first place. I had a great trip to Tennessee. It was a lot of fun. Went down to the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area. And I just love, and I feel like this just goes for the whole South because it was areas that we stopped in on the way too. But I just love the vibe of the South. It's a different world than I'm used to. It's not where I typically live or spend a lot of time. So when I go on vacation there, I just soak it up. I enjoy the vibe. There's just, listen, not in a very non-judgmental way, there is a weight difference going down to the South than, I think statistics back that up, but it's not in a, listen, the food, the cooking there, if I was living that every single day, I think there'd be a weight difference for me as well versus what I look like right now. What else going on in the South? The vibe, a lot of religious shirts, many more religious shirts than I'm used to, but also much more shirts with profanity. That's more accepted there. And I'm not sure. Is that a South thing or is that a vacation area thing? Not sure. Also more something you'd see more there. Political shirts, mostly Trump, exclusively Trump. In fact, there's a story on the news I saw while I was eating breakfast that there was businesses getting upset because one business was displaying a Biden sign and the other businesses in the area thought that was bad for business for some reason. I wonder if they took that sign down. But actually, you know what? It wasn't exclusively Trump political shirts. I think a lot of people had this shirt, like Biscuits Gravy 2024, as if Biscuits and Gravy could run. If they could, based off of the shirts, they'd have a real shot in the election. Also, you know who else would have a shot and who else had political shirts? Dolly Parton. When I was at Dollywood, lots of people wearing Dolly Parton for president shirts and just other, obviously, Dolly Parton shirts, which leads me to my question that I've never understood. You go to Dollywood and you see about a third of the people are wearing shirts that are sold in the gift shop at Dollywood. Tell me this, if you do this, because I've never done this. Are those people, are they going to the gift shop, buying the shirt and changing the shirt at Dollywood? or when they were picking out their outfit for the day, were they like, oh, I'm going to Dollywood. Let me put on this Dollywood shirt that I already have. Maybe she'll be there. Maybe she'll see it. I don't know why you put on the shirt that you think that, again, a third of the people in the entire park are going to be wearing, but nevertheless, a lot of people on the same wavelength. I've never understood that. If I buy a shirt at the gift shop, I just don't pop it right on. So I don't know. That's never something that I've actually understood. But then again, I guess you got to carry it around all day. But wait, you're doubling up shirt. I really don't. I don't get it. We're a divided country right now. At least that's what some would say. We're so divided, we can't agree on one single type of French fry. Some say curly. Some say crinkle. Some say waffle. Many restaurants now saying, why not multiple? We're so divided. That's why I think we're actually united. We're united behind the idea that French fries are just great, and there's no reason to choose just one kind. That's what Chick-fil-A is saying. They are now testing out, turning away, in some sense, from the classic waffle fry, and also including an option for regular, just your standard French fry. They are testing this out at their test kitchen, Little Blue Menu, in College Park, Maryland. I think it's a great idea, in theory anyways. I'm looking at the picture, the video of these French fries they're testing out, and they don't look particularly great. Could they be better than their waffle fries? It's hard to say. It really all depends on how well they hold sauce, and I think waffle fries are about as good as you can get for holding that delicious Chick-fil-A sauce. These fries that Chick-fil-A is testing out at their test kitchen, they kind of look like, you know what Chick-fil-A might need to start stocking is malt vinegar. These look like the kind of fries that could benefit from a dousing of vinegar. Streaming wars are claiming a victim, it looks like. Apple TV Plus is reportedly slashing their streaming budget. Way less money is going to be going into the shows and movies that they've been spending so much to create over the past few years since the service has launched. Why? Because there's just not getting the return on investment. Listen to this. A new report from Bloomberg says that Apple TV Plus attracts just 0.2% of all TV viewing in the United States, which that sounds kind of bad. But even worse, it generates less viewing in 1 month than Netflix does in 1 day. Ooh, that is no good, especially when you look at the money that Apple has been spending, particularly on some of the expensive movies, like, the Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon that came out last year. It's just not been paying off in terms of viewership numbers for Apple TV Plus, which is a big bummer for them. And as some of their shows and movies have actually been quite good, it's going to be a big knock on some of the creators and some of us viewers who have actually found some decent things to watch on Apple TV Plus from time to time. So that is a negative, but I mean, you can't do business that way. They've been pouring millions upon millions into Apple TV Plus, and people just are not watching, whether the quality's good or not. So that now it's not shutting down, but it just means that way less stuff is going to be showing up on Apple TV Plus, and it's probably maybe going to look a little cheaper. So yes, it is true. Mrs. Hudson and I helped reunite a runaway child with his family over the weekend. We were out, of course, on our vacation in Tennessee. You don't go to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge without hiking in the Smoky Mountains, right? Well, maybe many do, but we were sure to take some time and go to the Smoky Mountains. In fact, because when we had gone before, we actually didn't do any hiking. We just did touristy stuff that didn't involve strenuous activity. So this time we made sure we were going to get a hike in, and we did. And while hiking, we passed a child that was, I would say, the whole situation was smack dab in gray area. Like, the child was just the right age where I was like, well, he looks a little young to be like hiking all alone, but he's not so young that it's like, okay, like, what are you doing, buddy? And so we passed him going the other way, and it was enough for us to go, well, I didn't see anybody around. He looked like he knew where he was going. Like, like maybe he was meeting up with somebody else back further down the path or something like that. But it was a situation where it wasn't quite enough for us to stop him and go, hey, do you need help? And we just let him keep going. Now, sometime later on down the path, a family of folks has headed our way, panicked, feverish. Where have you seen a child? Have you seen a little boy walking around? In fact, we had. So we let them know. And now, granted, they probably would have caught up to him anyways because they were going much faster. Not sure the entire story, but we were able to help. It is true. We were able to actually be of some assistance because we knew that he didn't veer down one of the forks in the way. It's just like, hey, he's right up this way. You should be able to catch up to him. And later on, we reunited. They reunited, and then we were reunited with them, and they thanked us. Tried to shove a $20 bill in my hand. I refused. Look, we really didn't do all that much. It was a situation where it was total gray area. Like, what do you do? What would we have done? Even if we saw him there and we were like, okay, this kid doesn't know what he's doing. He's separated. He needs, some help. What do we just stop him? And because he probably would have just tried to keep going. He seemed like he had a reason that he was walking away. And I tell that story not because it makes me look good, because it doesn't. We helped in a very, very minor way, and they probably would have found him anyways. But I do think it's a reminder that, that family, when they caught up to him, they were probably just excited to have him back, because it was quite a distance between them when they showed up and after we had passed the kid. There was a pretty good distance between the two. They were thinking, and it's a big woods, and you don't know, there's bears out there, or he just, could get lost. And it's a big forest. It'd be hard to find a child in that big forest if he had gotten far enough away. And they were just happy to have him back. It reminds me of, like, if your dog runs away, where, yes, they should know better. You wish they would have run away. You should be mad because they know the rules. They know where they're supposed to be. This kid knew he was supposed to stick with his family, but he somehow got away. But when they caught up to him and when we saw them again, it wasn't, I'm so mad at you, Billy. Why did you run away? It was, man, I'm just glad to have you back. That's how God is with us. You can run away. You can create a big space, whatever your reasons are, to get further and further away from where God is. But he's not going to be upset with you when you come back. You don't have to keep running away because you're like, well, when he catches up to me, he is going to be so angry, and that's not going to be good. When God catches up to you, when you let Jesus catch you, he just wants to be, he's happy to have you back. If you want to know what that's like, check out RadioU.com/free gift, or just start talking to God now. Say, hey, God, I've been running away for a while. I've been doing my own thing. I want to get back with you. He'll be happy to hear that. If you're a Disney fan, you should know some changes have just taken place to one of Disney World's iconic attractions, the Country Bear Jamboree. In fact, it's no longer called the Country Bear Jamboree. The new updated edition just opened up. It's now called the Country Bear Musical Jamboree. Glad they clarified that. Are there other kinds of jamborees? But that is the smallest of the changes. The bigger change is that they've totally renamed a character as well. Liver Lips McGee McGrawl is no longer Liver Lips McGrawl. Apparently, Liver Lips is a, some might say, racist term. Either way, impolite term for African Americans dating back to the 1840s. And now, finally, that's been his name since this attraction opened up, which opened up on the very first day that Disney World opened up. Now in 2024, finally changing it. He is known as Romeo McGraw. Don't love Romeo as a name. I feel like they could have chosen something better, something with a little more character. But I mean, it sounds like a change needed to be made. But that's not the only change that's being made. They're also swapping out the songs. All the songs that you might remember if you ever saw the Country Bear Jamboree at Disney World in years prior, those are gone. They've all been replaced by songs from Disney films like A Whole New World, Remember Me, The Bare Necessities, instead of, and listen to these songs that used to be included in the Country Bear Jamboree. I mean, these songs, absolutely insane. Songs like Mama Don't Whip Little Buford, or My Woman Ain't Pretty, but She Don't Swear None, or All the Guys That Turn Me On, Turn Me Down. They were singing these in the Country Bear Jamboree. And lastly, a favorite of mine, Blood on the Saddle. Surprising that, again, that this is what they were doing until now. But now a much more generic Disney show, the Country Bear Jamboree, musical jamboree. Let's do our box office breakdown. Normally we do this on Monday. I was out yesterday on vacation, so still we need to take time to look at what made money and what didn't in theaters over the weekend. Number one at the box office was the big new release starring Glenn Powell, Daisy Edgar Jones, Twisters, which made $81 million in North America, which seems like a pretty strong, solid opening for a sequel to a movie that many people these days probably don't even remember, or myself included, are familiar with but have never seen. Twisters comes out strong, kind of like the Top Gun Maverick of 2024. Obviously not quite those heights, but still $81 million did very well. I did not see that over the weekend. If you did, let me know how it was at 8772 Radio U. Number two, and I have seen this, I'm embarrassed to say, Despicable Me 4 made another $24 million. That's now up over $260 million so far. Inside Out 2 still holding strong. That was number three with another $12 million. It's getting close to $600 million just in North America alone. Then Long Legs, the Nicolas Cage horror movie, $11 million. And A Quiet Place Day 1, rounding out the top five with another $6 million. Normally, I come here to you for the box office breakdown and let you know something that I've watched recently. Like I said, I was on vacation over the weekend, and so I watched a whole lot of nothing, not anything movie or TV show related anyways. So if you want to see how my vacation went, though, we'll have more in the Hudson Show podcast, and I'll post some highlights up on the Hudson Show at Hudson Radio U on TikTok will be a good place for you to follow there. But I want to know what you watched. If you got to see anything good recently, any good recommendations now that I'm a little behind, let me know at 8772 Radio U. Logan Paul and KSi are being sued for Prime Energy. Once again, this is a news story. This is a different lawsuit than ones we've covered in the past. In this case, they are being sued by the United States Olympic Committee. It's pretty huge. Why is Prime Hydration getting sued by the Olympics? They are being sued because apparently they have a partnership with Kevin Durant, who's on the Team USA Olympic basketball team. But the problem is they are using their Kevin Durant's status on Team USA going to the Olympics in social media advertising. And the Olympics is very, particularly Team USA, very protective of their brand. And so when Prime Energy does things like posts about the new Kevin Durant flavor, calling it Team USA Kevin Durant drink and Kevin Durant Olympic Prime drink, not only do those sound weird, they're also using trademarked phrases and trading, and according to the lawsuit, trading on the goodwill in deliberate, willful, bad faith, and trying to use the Olympics as a way to sell their product, even though they didn't have any agreement with the Olympics to do that. This is crazy. It's so obvious. Like anybody here at Radio U knows it. Like the Olympics is one of the things. It's like March Madness. It's like the Super Bowl. You don't mess with the Olympics. You don't use it. You use different stuff like the games or something. Like you figure out some other way around it, because if you actually try to use the Olympics without their say so, they will come after you, which means there's two explanations for this as far as Prime Hydration goes. Either one, the people there are incompetent, don't know what they're doing. I guess that's possible. Or two, they just make so much money that they just don't care. And it's worth, like, they don't even, they're like, what? The Olympics are going to sue us? So what? We're still making so much, selling so many drinks. Who even cares? Whenever you have a workplace conundrum, just go ahead. Let us know here on the Hudson Show. We will help you out, get you some advice you possibly need at 8772 Radio U, or you can just vent too. That works. That's kind of what this one is, where we have someone who says, hey, I work in an office. I am not this office's landscaper. A couple months ago, I finally put my foot down and flat out told my coworker when she hinted, it's about time to trim the hedges around the office. There's about a dozen of them, and two of them are nearly 9 feet tall at this point. I am not doing it this time. We hired a good landscaping company recently. The boss can pay them to do that. The boss or the coworker went on about how our landscapers will charge over $100 to trim hedges. And why should I care? I thought she got the hint that maybe this is something we really do not need to be doing until recently when she went outside and started trimming the hedges herself. She's older and has a bad hip, and I know she was expecting me to follow out and help because during our previous conversation a couple months ago, she even said I would do it myself, but I can't because of my hip. I still refused. She came back in all breathy going, well, I got about half of it done, and I completely ignored her. My other coworker's a pushover and went to help her. Well, good for her. She can have it. It's not about the work itself. It's about the principle of the matter. I'm not paid to do the landscaping. Therefore, I won't be doing it. Guilt me all you want. It's not happening. Not sure what advice we need to give here. Sounds like we've got a worker here standing their ground. I like that. But any kind of input would be helpful here because this is a wild situation. 8772 RadioU. You're being guilted into doing landscaping when that's not your job. What should happen? Some of the advice coming in from RJ says, you're not wrong to sit out on the hedge trimming. That's an insane expectation if it wasn't in your job description. Also, I wonder if the company's insurance plan even covers you if you were to get injured doing what is not your job. That is a good point, that if you're out there doing something dangerous that on the clock that you're not meant to be doing, that wasn't something you signed up for, that actually could hurt you physically and when the pocketbook gets involved, if you have any medical bills that come along with that. Regina says, unless the actual work the coworker is doing landscaping is causing her suffering, I'd say continue to ignore her. The coworker that's trying to guilt our person into this says they have a bad hip, which no reason not to believe them. However, if they're still good enough to keep on going out there and they're willing to put their body on the line, unless they're actually, like falling over, having issues, that's not your problem to worry about. I like what Kane says. Kane says, when you were hired, was facilities maintenance in your job description? If it wasn't, this should not be something you're doing. Plus, if a business is worried about $100 to trim a hedge, that is a problem right there, and you should leave. I don't know if it's literally that they can't afford the $100 or more that the coworker just trying to use that as a way to kind of guilt you in. But either way, you're not in charge of the budget. You're just working there in the office. This is actually crazy. I can't believe if RadioU came to me and was like, hey, Hudson, can you help take care of the... First of all, somebody who wasn't even my boss. If Nene comes in here and goes, hey, Hudson, I'm going to need you to trim the hedges, I'd be like, that's a cool prank. I can't believe you agreed to do this the first time. And I'm glad that this person is putting their foot down now at this point. Oh, I see Michael the Sledgehammer heading my way. I think he's going to go tell me to trim the hedges. So maybe we got to end the segment. You've heard of Cocaine Bear. Now get ready for Cocaine Shark. Apparently, there's a lot of cocaine sharks off the coast of Brazil, where researchers recently tested some sharks in the ocean there and found that all of them, in one way or another, tested positive for cocaine in their system, which sounds absolutely horrifying. Maybe that explains, that could be an explanation for all of the crazy orca behavior lately. Maybe there's cocaine in the water there too, and that's what is driving them to act ridiculous. But not only is this a problem for the sharks, of course, that there's so much cocaine getting into, I guess, the water system in Brazil that it is shedding out into the ocean and the sharks are ingesting it. That's a problem. It's a particular problem because it also could affect humans. And I'm not talking about sharks attacking humans. I'm talking about in Brazil, sharks are something that is actually commonly eaten. And so there's not only a concern that, this is bad for the sharks, bad for the ocean, et cetera, et cetera. It's also bad for humans because even if you're not a human cocaine user, you could be ingesting cocaine by ingesting a shark. It's a vicious cocaine cycle. That sounds horrible. Thanks for listening to The Hudson Show. Please don't forget to rate and review the podcast.